starting from 2000 all the way up to the 2010, was considered the golden era of TV. As cable and exclusive networks gained traction, audiences were gifted with well-crafted TV shows filled to the brim with complex plotlines, morally conflicted characters, and better visual storytelling than their predecessors. Sci-Fi had already been all about space and aliens since the 80s, but the 2000s cranked it up with cooler tech and darker, mind-twisting cyberplots. So, here at Marvelous Video, we're throwing it back to the days when TV was actually top tier. Hop in the TARDIS, and let's go.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
1. Lost, 2004. This list would be lost to reason without Lost. A mixed bag of castaways stranded on a mysterious island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The story practically writes itself. Lost first aired in September 2004 and had a good run till 2010. The basic premise of the show followed the aftermath of Oceanic Airlines Flight 815 crash landing on its route from Sydney to Los Angeles. Right off the bat, the surviving passengers were threatened by polar bears, who had actually been brought to the island by the Dharma Initiative. All the while, a brainwashed, unseen smoke monster roamed the jungle. This was the Man in Black, a shadowy antagonist who had been raised on the island itself. Lost wasn't just a stranded on an island story. It wove narratives between the characters' lives, before the crash and after the crash. Some fan favorites included Desmond Hume, a man whose mind was able to travel through time thanks to the island's electromagnetism, or Locke, who seemed to be paralyzed before the crash, but could miraculously walk on the island. And how can we forget Kate Austen, who spent years fleeing the law to end up on the island, escaping and going back after all of it. Lost delivered just the right moment of sci-fi and supernatural twists. But what made it one of the greatest shows of its time? It was all about the characters and the mind-blowing mystery that kept people guessing. Fans of the show, some of whom called themselves the Lost Away, or Lost, would come together every week to theorize the event of the upcoming episode based on the clues in the previous one. Safe to say, Lost cemented its status as a cult classic, and it's still just as iconic today. 2. Battlestar Galactica. This particular iteration of the TV show, which ran from 2003 up until 2009, was actually a reimagination of the 1978 Battlestar Galactica series, created by Glenn A. Larson. Okay, so imagine if Frankenstein's monster revolted and started a war on humankind instead. Battlestar Galactica followed a similar plot, which made it a cautionary tale more than anything. The pilot of this show kick-started as a 3-hour miniseries on the Sci-Fi channel. The story began in what was considered our collective ancient past, rather than the future. An advanced civilization of humans led a pretty turbulent existence in the 12 colonies of Cobalt. The human civilizations were threatened by their own creations. These were Cylons, a race of sentient robotic beings whose main goal was to wipe out humankind completely. To counter this, our so-called ancestors rebooted a decommissioned military capital ship under the command of William Adama by President Laura Ross. This story of survival was wrapped up in several spin-offs that were made well into the 2010s. Battlestar Galactica helped pave the way for an apocalyptic horror drama that soon became a popular theme in the years to come. Time magazine expressed that this dystopian show was a gripping sci-fi allegory of the war on terror, complete with monotheistic religious fundamentalists, aka the Cylons, sleeper cells, civil liberties crackdown, and even a prison and torture scandal. The show was not only an allegory that hit close to home for American audiences, but also a layered story driven by grief and sheer desperation for survival. This driving factor led to the discovery of Earth, hence, we live. 3. Firefly, 2002. This space western drama with lawless frontiers was created by a man of fictional fantasy. You might have heard of the creator of this show, Joss Whedon, who was also involved in the making of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and MCU's The Avengers, 2012, just to name a few. Firefly, on the other hand, had a protagonist who looked suspiciously like Han Solo in an Obi-Wan costume. Anyway, this show was set in the distant future, namely in the year 2517. The plot mainly follows the misadventures of a crew aboard the ship Serenity. They were Mal Reynolds, played by Nathan Fillion, as the captain of the ship. Then we have the second in command, Zoe Elaine Washburn, played by Gina Torres, and her husband, Hoban Washburn, among other otherworldly. Premise of this show pointed to the fact that only two global superpowers existed, the United States and China. The crew of Serenity fought on the losing side of the ongoing Civil War. They also traveled from one edge of space to another, acting as pioneers for newer untouched star systems. Crew of Serenity had it all: sharp dialogue, a solid story, and effortless chemistry. But even that wasn't enough to save Firefly, which got canceled just 4 months after it premiered. Still, the show built a hardcore fan, so much so that they even made a documentary called done the impossible to prove why it deserved a second chance. So, is it too late to keep hoping for a comeback? 4. Fringe. 2008. The sci-fi drama has been called an X-Files knockoff, but let's actually try to be fair to this show. This show ran from 2008 till 2013, when it premiered on the Fox television network. Fringe's plot mostly followed the casework of a federal task force division, supported by the FBI. This was the Fringe division, which consisted of the dynamic agent, Olivia Dunham, Dr. Walter Bishop, aka the mad scientist, who liked to blow stuff up, and his estranged son, Peter. As the name tells us, Dunham's division dealt with phenomena that existed on the fringes of mainstream scientific understanding. She had to track down and decipher unexplainable events that lacked any empirical support. This, of course, had to include borderline unethical augmentation made to the human bodies in horrific transhumanist experiments gone wrong. This show even played around with the existence of a parallel universe in the second season, hybrid shapeshifters, doppelgangers from said parallel universe, and doomsday devices. This show had it all. Although this show's reception was lukewarm at best, it soon garnered a cult following during the later season. Peter, the estranged son of the eccentric scientist, quickly became a fan favorite, adding a heartbreaking emotional layer to a dominantly scientific story. Even though many fans believed that the creators of the show seemed unsure of the direction they wanted to go in, Fringe still held up and is now considered a solid sci-fi drama of the 2000s. 5. Star Wars: The Clone Wars. 2008. Alright, this is a personal favorite. The Clone Wars was a brilliantly made animated show that filled the gap between the second and third prequel, Star Wars: Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. The series first aired on Cartoon Network in 2008, all the way until 2013, created by the man, George Lucas himself, who released this project as a theatrical feature film first. So as we mentioned, the Clone Wars took place during the prequel trilogy era. As a result, it mostly focused on Jedi General Anakin Skywalker, Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Senator of Naboo, Padme Amidala. How can we forget a reckless yet courageous Padawan learner, Ahsoka Tano? The central premise was the Separatist crisis, concocted by Lord Count Dooku. The Galactic Republic fought hard and fast to prevent surrounding planetary systems from withdrawing from their political entity. Naturally, this was a covert scheme calculated by Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, who planned to wipe out all living Jedi. During the show's run, Captain Rex and Commander Cody became fan favorites, with their no-nonsense and sarcastic personalities playing off each other. The end of the show, however, one might have expected it to end with a dramatic floor. Indeed, the end of the Clone Wars and the start of the Empire was eerily quiet and heavy with loss. Even though Star Wars: The Clone wasn't strictly an adult animation, it still dealt with story arcs wrought with emotional depth and an expensive plot. The show also emphasizes the classic Star Wars themes of good versus evil and light versus dark. More than that, it depicted the cruelty of slave death and betrayal, among many other things. 6. Doctor Who. 2005. Technically, it's Doctor Who has been around since the 60s. This sci-fi TV series was first broadcast on BBC in 1963, the theme song of which laid down the roots of techno and electronica music. The first Doctor was portrayed by William Hartnell, and since then, there have been 14 more. The latest is portrayed by Ncuti Gatwa. The basic premise followed the adventures of the extraterrestrial Time Lord, the Doctor. They would zip around in the space-time continuum in a time-traveling telephone booth known as the TARDIS. The driving force of this series was reincarnation and the Time Lord's non-linear concept of time. Every time a Doctor was fatally wounded, their cells would regenerate into a wholly different physical body, but the memories remained intact. Thanks to all the time spent traveling, various incarnations of the Time Lord could meet each other on any timeline. Jodie Whittaker was known to become the first woman Doctor in 2017. The Doctors have to take down foes the likes of Daleks, which were a xenophobic race of mutants, and Cybermen, the cyborg of the show. 2006, Doctor Who won the British Academy Television Award for Best Drama Series, and also made the record for being the longest serialized show in British TV history. As the seasons passed, Doctor Who did an excellent job of keeping up with modern technology. The show nearly always fits the cultural context of its time, while still remaining loyal to its core sci-fi theme. The show was mainly celebrated for catering to all age groups, since it's literally been running since the 60s. It's got something for everyone. 7. Eureka. 2006. Imagine a town full of scientific geniuses. Well, look no further than Eureka in South Oregon. Deputy United States Marshal Carter first accidentally passed through Eureka while transporting his own daughter, as a prisoner. Before he knew it, Jack Carter was made the sheriff, being the only non-genius in a town full of geniuses. He did have his own strength, though, such as his charm, quick wit, and street smarts. Eureka was inhabited by the most renowned scientists, who all worked for Global Dynamics, a corporation responsible for most of humanity's technological breakthroughs. Storylines depicted the town's deceased, seemingly returning only to turn out as their clone. In one episode, Carter also had to deal with the absolute plagiarism of a scientist who was using electromagnetic pulses to wipe another researcher's memory in order to claim their work as his own. By the end of the first season, audiences were enthralled by the multiverse this show presented. Eureka tastefully blended sci-fi with humor, making it the perfect family show. It makes for lighthearted watching, while also putting viewers' critical thinking skills to use. What could possibly be causing brain damage to Eureka's residents? Could it be clone chicken meat? When it came to a small town with big secrets, Eureka always had a surprise in store. 8. Heroes, 2006. A show that set the way for quite a few superhero drama. Heroes was created by Tim Crean. It aired on NBC from 2006 till 2010. The storytelling of this show followed the style of classic American superhero comic book. Each season consisted of 2 volumes with countless subplots, while the main plot remained steady. The first volume of season 1, titled Genesis, was considered to be a masterpiece of storytelling. It all began when a seemingly normal group of people realized that they possessed superhuman ability. This show's major antagonist was a clandestine organization known as the Company, which sought to gain control and even kill those gifted with superpowers. In season 2, it was revealed that the Company had actually tested and locked away a weaponized virus that was meant to be released into the world to start a pandemic. The creator of Heroes initially wished for an ever-changing cast, but changed his mind once he observed how popular the original recurring cast was. This included the likes of Peter Petrelli, the hospice nurse who gained the ability to imitate other people's superpowers. Then we have Claire Bennett, who could seemingly regenerate on a whim, and Hiro Nakamura, a regular office girl who could suddenly manipulate the space-time continuum. One could even say that Heroes was a brilliant TV show, released at the wrong time. However, we say otherwise. The reason behind Heroes' success was that not many serialized superhero shows existed at the time. The first 2 seasons of the show always remained a fan favorite, way more than the later seasons, at least, in which reviewers claimed that the element of dark mystery eventually fizzled out. 9. Dark Angel, 2000. One of the creators of this action drama was none other than James Cameron. The show first aired on Fox in 2000 until 2002, with a total of 2 seasons. Dark Angel was also considered to be Jessica Alba's breakthrough role. She played Max Guevara, a genetically engineered super soldier who had escaped her military facility and fled to a very dystopian Seattle in the year 2019. Before the show followed Max's journey, we got to see how the whole of the United States was thrown into a state of pure chaos. It was flashy and technologically advanced one moment, until a gang of terrorists triggered a catastrophic electromagnetic pulse that destroyed the whole country's connection and communication systems. 10 years later, Max was seen in desperate search of her fellow super soldier. Season 2, Transgenic Military. The transgenic military facility that Max escaped was exposed to the developing country, and it rivaled another centuries-old transgenic breeding cult. Dark Angel was dubbed as the ultimate gothic cyberpunk drama with a strong female lead, which viewers absolutely love. Audiences get a sneak peek at James Cameron's filmmaking ability, which will be a massive hit in the years to come. The show bleakly portrayed a corrupted system, unreliable media, and organized militia, along with a warrior who wasn't afraid to face the dangers of the utterly dystopian world she lived. What's not to love? 10. Samurai Jack, 2001. This segment on Adult Swim might have reminded you of the art style seen in Dexter's Laboratory. Well, because they've got the same creator, Genndy Tartakovsky. He was in awe of samurai culture and heavily inspired by the comics he wrote. The main character of this show is a prince with no name who possesses a magical katana that is gifted to him by 3 gods, Ra, Rama, and Odin. This blade could slice through anything. The prince's father, the emperor, and their king had been seized by a demon warlord named Aku. The prince turned unnamed samurai and wielded his mystical katana. He bravely battled with Aku when the demon pulled a fast one and sent him flying into a bleak dystopia. The samurai found himself being called Jack by those around, just as he realized that the future was also dominated by a demonic tyrant. Samurai Jack was a beautiful showcase of dystopian retrofuturism. Jack found himself surrounded by robots, animals that could talk, and alien refugees from other colonized star systems. For a humble samurai from feudal Japan, this was a lot to digest at once. Samurai Jack was undeniably a unique show with a well-laid-out map. It was received positively by audiences who appreciated the zippy animation style, well-placed humor, and witty dialogue. At the same time, the show often depicted stretches without a single word said, using its artistic imagery to tell the story instead. 11. Fullmetal Alchemist, Brother, 2009. Speaking of animation, this brilliant piece of storytelling deserved to be on this list more than any. Loosely based on the Fullmetal Alchemist manga series, created by Hiromu Arakawa. This show followed the journeys of Alphonse Elton and Edward as they traveled the world, training to be alchemists. When their mother passed away due to a chronic illness, the brothers decided to bring her back to life through an experiment of alchemic human transmutation. This went horribly wrong, as the two brothers nearly died, with Edward's leg blowing off, while Al's whole body was destroyed. In a desperate attempt to save his brother, Edward bound his brother to a suit of armor. The brothers finally swore to train and study to become government-sanctioned alchemists. They were also on the lookout for a somewhat mystical philosopher's stone that could return their bodies to how they used to be. Ed and Al ended up uncovering a darker conspiracy by the government in the process. Fullmetal Alchemist was considered to be one of the greatest anime of its time. The world building is simply impeccable, with themes that deal with loss in general and heavy grief. Fans of the manga and both the shows truly appreciated how committed the main characters to solving a problem that they essentially brought upon themselves. With a sprinkle of humor thrown in, the show balanced out the darker drama of their story. Fullmetal Alchemist had a little bit of everything in the mix: drama, action, adventure, even romance. You name it. Marvelous video. There you have it, folks. As we wrap up this list, let us know down below which one of these shows has been your personal favorite. Do you think animation does more justice in the portrayal of sci-fi? Either way, the early 2000s really expanded the boundary when it came to this genre. It never failed to remind us of our place in this ever-changing universe. Will there ever come a time when we finally won't be able to keep up with advancing technology?